Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to Q2 FY22 earnings conference call of Deepak Nitrite Limited, hosted by IIFL Securities Limited. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then 0 on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Nishit Solanki from CDR India. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us on Deepak Nitrite's Q2 and H1 FY22 earnings conference call. We have with us today Mr. Maulik Mehta, Executive Director and CEO, Mr. Sanjay Upadhyay, Director Finance and CFO, and Mr. Somsekhar Nanda, Deputy CFO. We will begin the call with opening remarks from the management team, followed by an interactive question and answer session. At the outset, I would like to clarify that certain statements made or discussed on the conference call today may be forward-looking in nature, and a disclaimer to this effect has been included in the investor communication shared with you earlier. To begin, Mr. Maulik Mehta will share views on the operating performance and the growth plans of the company, followed by Mr. Sanjay Upadhyay, who shall take us through the financial and segmental performance. The results documents have been shared with you earlier and have also been posted on company's website and exchanges. I now invite Mr. Mehta to share his opening comments. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we
can hear you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, and a warm welcome to you on Deepak Nitrite's Q2 and H1 FY22 earnings conference call. I believe you had the opportunity to go through our results documents that were shared with you earlier. I'll begin by briefly taking you through the major operational highlights for the second quarter ended 30th September and the major developments and strategic approach for the coming year. Mr. Upadhyay will then present to you a financial overview during the period under review, and following that we can have our forum for the Q&A session. First of all, I want to congratulate all investors, stakeholders, and my entire team for the undaunting support extended towards the company during an extremely turbulent macroeconomic context, when the company has exhibited an exemplary performance during Q2, defying several challenges that were posed by global events. As you know, Deepak Nitrite continues to be a forerunner in the Indian chemical industry, particularly in harnessing import substitution opportunities. The company's business strategies prioritize the development of integrated product chains over standalone products, and this has led us to establishing a diversified product portfolio with a reliable supply backbone to cater to a growing demand of major corporations in India and overseas. A resilient business model is created where our products are finding applications across more than 30 end segments, and hence it balances out some of the vagaries of the market. The second quarter actually witnessed significant volatility in market demand and supply, even as it marked a return to human normalcy in commercial and industrial operations across the country following the second wave. There was a contrasting environment at the start of the quarter and towards the end. COVID was at its peak at the end of the first quarter, but the economic downturn and the market sentiment was very low in the beginning of the second quarter. Many industries adopted a wait and watch approach, were not stocking materials. There were sharp continued increases in the cost of raw materials, utilities, and especially logistics. However, things started improving around mid-quarter with a robust demand pickup and better realization in spite of many of these challenges. The company saw to it that all its plants were run efficiently at optimal capacity. The quarter saw volume growth across all the segments. Amidst this rapidly evolving backdrop, we focused on managing supply chain constraints and leveraged operational excellence to help mitigate the worst of the volatility. It's been an excellent performance by our team, given the confluence of factors. As I said, we worked hard to maintain margins and, where possible, while keeping on growing our market share across the businesses. We believe this will yield substantial advantages and sustainable advantages as we move to an elevated demand scenario. As mentioned earlier, our approach has, instead of timing the market, both from RM and FG side, we have focused on back-to-back formula-based arrangements with suppliers and customers, both where the contracts are signed with a predetermined benchmark index on an annualized basis, which allows us to procure at the best rates possible. Parallelly, with our customers also, in many cases we have formula-based pricing, whereby we are able to pass on raw material price increases after a period of time. We believe under the current situation of high volatility, this is the most optimal approach one can have. For example, in our basic intermediate segment, we have increased our market share during the quarter. We selectively implemented price increases in Q2 to partially pass on higher costs. As a result, we have witnessed strong growth in volumes and have been able to strengthen our customer relationships. We did this strategically because we are implementing brownfield expansions and debottlenecking for key products in this segment, leading to an increase in capacity in Q3. After partially passing on costs in Q2, we will be further implementing price increases in Q3. So basic intermediates as a segment have done well and enjoyed an excellent outlook, as it is set to witness improved price and volume momentum from the third quarter. Moreover, basic chemicals has been rebranded as basic intermediates, since the products now integrate towards a greater value addition to our existing and potential customers. For the fine and specialty chemical segment, we were able to demonstrate resilience and supply planned volumes to committed customers despite the challenges on ground. Also, an important point to note is that last year had a high base due to a sharp spillover of volumes from the April-May months into the August-September months. Even as the input cost inflation has been absorbed this quarter, we are very well placed to transmit this increase in input costs through higher realizations as we're entering the second half of this fiscal, which is seasonally strong for businesses like agrochemicals. The outlook for this business is positive. We've entered into multi-year agreements with leading customers for existing products. Further, we're augmenting capacity for some key agrochemical intermediates, which will come on stream in April 2022. I'm happy to say that even before completion of this project, we have tied up the entire volume. The growth outlook for fine and specialties is further enhanced by greenfield capex programs that are due for commissioning in 12 to 15 months, starting Q3 next year. We anticipate further elevation in this trajectory of performance from these programs. A large majority of the new production is formula linked with pass-through pricing. Coming to performance products SBU, here the customer industries has witnessed a more protracted impact from the pandemic last year and also this year. However, in Q2, the market has started improving and we witnessed positive volume growth. Given the supply situation in China, customers are procuring larger volumes of both optical brighteners and the key raw material than usual now. Since major end user segments have returned to pre-COVID levels, the performance products business is expected to witness a sharp turnaround with prices already firming up into the third quarter. The phenolics business continues delivering strong performance quarter on quarter. We witnessed volume growth in Q2. The whole approach here is to run the plant at an optimal capacity and at the highest operational efficiency. In this segment also, we have increased volume, thereby enhancing our market share. The first quarter had witnessed an abnormal impact on acetone pricing due to the cyclone in the US. However, in the second quarter, pricing has normalized. Commissioning of the cogen power plant and the additional isopropyl alcohol capacity during this third quarter shall also firm up the performance. With growth reported by every business unit and key product cluster, the business is in very good shape, as we have been having superior control over all aspects of the company, including operations, marketing, procurement, technical services, project, and finance. I would take this opportunity to state that at this challenging time of talent management, attrition has been negligible, and the right talent force is in place and motivated to work with the company to take it to the next level. Even as we have pared debt and maintained dividends, we have been able to strategically deploy cash flow into growth projects which will further improve the business proposition. This includes the brownfield project and debottlenecking for key products in the basic intermediates towards the end of the third quarter. There will be an enhanced capacity for agrochemical intermediates coming on stream over the next 6 to 8 months. New agrochemical intermediates further of 300 crores that we have already announced in our new site in Dahej, expected to be commissioned in H2 of next year. And we are, as I mentioned, expecting to commission IPA2 to manufacture 30,000 tons of additional capacity and a 29 megawatt cogen plant during this current quarter. Over and above, the expansion program for phenol and acetone downstream products of 700 crore will come into force as was informed earlier. All of these projects will also enable us to progress further up the value chain, delivering both volume and value gains across operations. For me, the key takeaway in Q2 is how efficiently our teams have navigated through very challenging circumstances to deliver sustainable outcomes, having control over all aspects of business. We're moving in the right direction to become a diversified chemical major where we maintain our stalwart position in existing products and further innovate to develop new products and platforms. More importantly, we seek to forge deeper long-term partnerships with strategic customers to deliver scale in volumes. While doing this, we will continue to focus on process intensification and operational excellence. One such example is our medium-term partnership with one of the world's largest agrochemical majors for supply of a key intermediate. As you may know, Deepak Phenolics is expanding the IPA facility and enhancing its utilities to add new downstream solvents. These solvents are largely employed in the life sciences paints coatings industry. The company aspires to be a world-class provider of solvents that are ideally integrated with its diverse product portfolio. In key achievements across the quarter, Deepak Nitrite was awarded the Best Compliance Company for the codes under responsible care by the Indian Chemical Council. Deepak Nitrite also received the Divya Bhaskar Pride of Gujarat Award for the most responsible company. Moreover, Deepak Foundation was awarded the Time CSR Award 2021 for Project Sangaat. To conclude, we continue to remain focused on maintaining our agility that enables us to seize opportunities arising from swift changes in the industry landscape. With contributions from upcoming brownfield expansions and greenfield projects with value-added forward integration, we will reinforce our competitiveness and position across value chains. Thank you. I would now like to hand over the call to our CFO, Mr. Sanjay Upadhyay, to address this forum and take you through the financial performance.
Thank you, Maulik, and good afternoon.
Ladies and gentlemen, we lost the line for the management. We would request you to please stay connected while we check the line. Ladies and gentlemen, request you to please continue to hold the line. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for patiently waiting. We have the management back in the conference. Over to you, sir.
So during the quarter under review, we have delivered a steady performance Amidst challenging operating scenarios, the quarter gradually experienced a rebound in normalcy in economic and industrial activities across the country, demonstrating that the country had emerged from the impacts of the pandemic severe second wave, particularly in the months of April and May. On the back of improving pricing scenario and elevated volume outlook, the business is very strongly positioned both for the immediate term as well as over the medium term. In that positive backdrop, let me share the key performance perspective of H1 FY22. On a consolidated basis, revenues are up by 93% at 3,224 crores. Despite challenges as a severe second wave in H1 FY22, the performance of HY FY20 is not comparable owing to the impact of the nationwide lockdown as well as more severe pandemic-related impact in the prior period of EBITDA stood at 855 crores in H1 FY22, higher by 83%. Margin maintained momentum at 27% in H1 FY22 in spite of significant rise in input costs. PBT and PAT expanded by 107% to 747 crore and 557 crores in H1 FY22. All in all, company has been extremely responsive in order to capitalize on the enhanced operating environment benefit. In addition, incremental gains in the business BI, SBU and the Phenolic division have fueled the company's performance. Though the macro environment has returned to normal during the later part of H1 FY22, challenges resulted from soaring input prices. Supply restriction, global trade bottlenecks due to container shortage and higher cost of utilities and domestic logistics also were observed. The company undertook several initiatives to ensure sufficient input availability in order to operate the manufacturing units at the high level of utilization, enabling it to achieve significant revenue growth and establish new profit benchmark in H1. Demand remains robust across all SBU and product categories. As production volumes have increased, the company is currently operating at high utilization levels. In Q2 FY22, on a consolidated basis, revenues came in at 1,690 crores, up by 70% year-on-year basis. Continued improvements across key strategic business sectors supported the resilient performance. Particularly in the business BI segment, BI, PP and Phenolic segment significantly improved their performance during the quarter, owing to increased operational leverage as a result of more favorable operating environment. Despite the challenges in input availability and logistical issues, the finance specialty sector generated constant volumes in accordance with the business strategy. In Q2 FY22, EBITDA stood at 395 crores, higher by 41% on year-on-year basis, translating into EBITDA margin of 23%. PBT grew by 49% on year-on-year basis to 342 crores in Q2 FY22. This was attributed largely to outstanding performance in Phenolic business. In the quarter, PAT came at 254 crores, higher by 49% as a result of improved operational and financial efficiency and duly supported by higher revenues. Overall, we ended the quarter on a strong note amidst very volatile macroeconomic situation. While the performance was on anticipated lines, the second half of this fiscal is likely to be even stronger seasonally as well. This trend is expected to continue in the foreseeable future. The other aspect that I wish to cover is the improved capital structure of the business. We have used cash flows to pay down debt, de-risk the business, increase the operational efficiency. As a result, despite the sharp rise in the working capital due to increased input prices, the operations remain highly capital efficient in improved ROCE. The ROCE for the past 12 months has improved significantly to 52% on a consolidated basis. This was 32% at the same time last year. With that, I will request the moderator to open the forum for question and answer session.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on the touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Anyone who would like to ask a question, please press star followed by 1. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. Anyone who would like to ask a question, you may press star followed by 1. The first question is from the line of Neeraj Jimudia from Anvil Research. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Neeraj.
Yeah, sir, question to Mr. Maulik Mehta. So I had one question on the business segments like basic chemicals and the fine and specialty business. So, like as per our current run rate in the half-yearly performance, we are at almost 1,800 crores of top line, combining both the business together. So how is the integration in each of these business segments? Let's say if we are producing or selling the products, how much we are backwardly integrated for the intermediates which are required for these finished products, as well as the forward integration in terms of the integration within this business segments, or else if you can help us explain that in terms of the number of products what we are currently producing and selling in these two business segments, how much we are internally producing those basic intermediates and how much we are dependent on the outside world, since the availability and pricing has been a issue in the latest situation currently, sir. So this is the first question.
Okay, this is a very large question.
Yeah.
I'll try to give you a flavor.
Yeah.
Now, in Deepak Nitrite, there is a good significant amount of integration that is there between all of the BUs. There was a time just about a decade ago when there were no BUs. It was a functional organization. The BUs have been created to do a better job of taking and creating the best value in the different application segments. So, what I can tell you is that whether it is in basic intermediates, whether it is in specialties, or whether it is in performance, the key products, the downstream, wherever we have gone downstream, that intermediate happens to be a key product. Now, there may be other raw materials that are imported or that are bought from the outside, like acids or like petrochemicals or
caustic soda,
things like hydrogen and all. But at the end of the day, those are gases or acids or whatever that are used to react our upstream products, which we also sell into the market again downstream. So you will find, for example, products like sodium nitrite, whether it is nitrotoluene, etc., featuring as important feedstock in fine and specialty also in performance products. So between Deepak Nitrite products, there's a very tight integration. Deepak Phenolics today is a standalone company which makes 3 products. Moving forward into the new company that we have already discussed earlier, there will be a tighter integration between Deepak Nitrite products and downstreams, Deepak Phenolics products and downstreams. I'll also mention one last point. Integration very often is not only about products, but also about processes and plants. So where there is a possibility of creating high level of fungibility, we have gone into developing new products so that the same plant, as and when required, can also be used to manufacture something which is a different starting and ending product and a different segment, but has overlap of the process and the plant assets.
So, sir, a related question to this would be in terms of the brownfield expansions, what you have been doing for the finance specialty business, as well as some of the debottlenecking exercise, what you mentioned in your opening remarks. So, the new products which would come into the business through this exercise, how we are placed? So, would these products be filling up the gap in terms of the backward integration for our existing product portfolio, or those products would be for the backward integration for the products what we are currently manufacturing?
No. Brownfield expansion, the way we mean it, is that we're going to be making more of the same. This is what we will be doing between Q3 and Q1 of next year.
Okay.
The greenfield products are products where we are going to start manufacturing that, and that's not something that we have made before. That will come from H2 next year.
Okay. So that is about the 350 crores capex what you mentioned. That would be for the new products what we'll be launching for this division, and that would be basically accompanying our backward as well as the forward integration for the products we manufacture.
Yes, they have a tight integration, but let me also point out that they are not part of Deepak's existing stable of products.
Okay. And sir, one last point would be with this new products what we'll be manufacturing, to what level our integration would be further go up, if you can just share your views on that.
See, when we choose a particular product, what we ask ourselves is, why should we make it? What is our unfair advantage? What is our right to win? Meaning, somebody or the other is already making this in the world.
Correct.
Right? And they may have fully depreciated plants. So what is the right that Deepak has to win with brand new capital? And India, we all know, capital cost is quite high compared to most other places in the world. So we have to have overwhelming reasons why Deepak should be the right company to make this. Now, it could be many. It could be because of significant process expertise that we have, that we believe we would be the best to make it. It could be because there is a very, very high CAGR of demand. It could be because the customer that would look at it, the customer where we have some sort of a very significant tie-up where they say, okay, look, if Deepak makes it, I am happy to give a premium to Deepak over other suppliers, and I will give you the largest share.
Okay.
Finally, it is, as you mentioned earlier, because there is a significant raw material set, which is a finished product that we are currently making and selling in the market. Any of these, we give weightages to all of these, and we need to have several of these in the green for us to take up a project. And when we go into investing into a brand new product, normally that would mean that at least 2, if not 3 of these are very much in the green, and that there should not be any major alarm bells. So we get all of the products that we're talking about right now. We have been in deep conversations with customers. In most cases, we have a very, very significant part of our plant production already tied up in formula-based pass-through pricing.
Okay.
So now moving forward, the investment risk is low, and our operational competency is high. The products that they require are products that we are very familiar with.
Correct.
Neeraj, one point I would like to mention here, as your question was very valid. See, this business, Deepak Nitrite business model, though we have 3 SBUs like finance, specialty, bulk, and PP, but all the SBUs are interwoven, so to say. It's only integrated. The product goes from one segment to another. So sometimes when people question that finance specialty this margin for 27 का 25 क्यों हो गया, these and that. Sometimes what happens that one segment, one product is doing very well in BC, but same product finds application in SNS. So SNS margin is bound to go because we transfer at the market price.
Correct.
So this is bound to happen, but one should not see like this. It's overall EBITDA margin we look at rather than looking at one particular SBU in one particular segment, because it's all fully integrated business. Each segment finds application in other segments. So this thing would be to look at the overall business rather than just splitting that into this SBU and this product, and it doesn't make much of a sense. Though outside market, of course, they will look at, but that's the reality of the business.
Correct. And so in terms of this capacities, what we will be setting up and going into operation, how quickly can we utilize the capacities fully? And if you can mention the asset turnovers too, that would be helpful, sir.
See, normally our asset turnover will be 1.75. It's somewhere between 1.5 to 2, but you can take an on average 1.75.
Correct.
Okay. And we have announced a project, like if you include phenolics also, to the tune of around 1,100-1,200 crores. Over and above that, some debottlenecking and as Maulik was mentioning, so around 1,250 crores capacities are there lined up. So we are very excited. you will see the results one by one. Like some expansions are for BC is coming in next quarter itself, for this quarter. And every quarter you have something or other. The phenol IPA and this is also starting now, the cogen plant.
Yeah.
So every quarter you have some new thing coming up. So I mean business is on a very sound footing as Maulik was also mentioning, because the existing products are doing really well, and on top of it with these all expansions, and I mean we are taking all corrective steps whatever is required to deliver a performance which everybody appreciates. That's all I can say.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much for answering the question in detail, and festival wishes to the entire team.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Same to you, Neeraj.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Abhijit Akella from IIFL. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, and good afternoon, gentlemen. Just a couple from my side. One was on the growth projects that you've talked about. So there's a very full pipeline, it seems, of projects across all the segments. Just wondering if there is one aggregate capex number that we can share for that we are executing over, say, the next couple of years. What is the total capex outlay that we are planning, across all these segments combined?
We have today we have already announced around 1,200 to 1,300 crores, and there are others in pipeline, and it will be a significantly large amount. I won't say it will be a small amount, but to give details, Abhijit, will be a little difficult at this stage. It makes we would be rather holding it to let it be cleared by the board and then announcing rather than giving a number. But then I can tell you with confidence a lot of projects are there in pipeline, a lot of opportunities for the business as such, both in phenolics and nitrite. No doubt on that.
Sure. And just to clarify on the phenolics capex, you just mentioned about 1,250 crores. Previously, we had talked about 700 odd crores in the solvents. So this 1,250 crore number includes the IPA doubling and the power plant. Is that correct, or is there something else also included?
I don't know, Abhijit. The point is 700 crores is in phenolics, 500 crores is in Deepak Nitrite, including the debottlenecking and everything. Plus the IPA and this I am not counting at all, because this I am considering everything is already done. That if you include that, it will be 1,500 crores.
Okay, got it. And in addition to that, of course, we have debottlenecking at the basic intermediate segment, which is coming up this quarter. Plus we have, within the next 6-8 months, we have the agrochemical intermediate debottlenecking as well.
Yes.
Also, I can tell you from Deepak Nitrite side, not phenolics, but nitrite side, most of these investments, the customer base and the volumes have already been tied up.
That's great. That's heartening to hear. Second, just on the margin outlook, we've seen some dip in the margins this quarter, as we've seen across the entire chemical industry actually, because of these rising input costs and logistics costs. But you did talk about the increase in certain prices, product prices, such as, for example, in performance products. So in that context, could you please share an outlook for how you see margins trending across the various segments over the second half of the year and beyond?
Abhijit, I would like to, again, I would say here that margin is an outcome of what you do. As a strategy, we believe that optimal utilization of the plants are very key. Like in phenolics, now if you take for example of phenol, last quarter we had 31% and this time it is 22%. Are we saying that margin is bad? You see the top line growth, you see the overall growth in the business. Somewhere margins are getting into a wrong listing. We have to focus on absolute number rather than focusing only on margin percentage. Because if I grow the business, percentage can vary. Percentage cannot we cannot target a particular percentage of EBITDA margin and then do the business. That way we cannot work in chemical industry, right? But however, to answer your question, again I will stick to my own guidance which I had given earlier also, and I stick to that. In BC, it will be somewhere between 27 to 32%. In FNS, it will be somewhere between 36 to 42%. And PP is going up. PP can further go up. Today, what I said around 50 to 20%, but the way things are moving, it will be higher in the third and fourth quarter. So can be in the range of say 25 or something.
Okay, and these are all EBITDA margins, right, Sanjay bhai?
Sorry?
These are all EBITDA margins.
EBITDA margin, yeah.
Right. And Phenolics, would you expect to sustain around these levels or improve a bit?
Yeah, I expect this to sustain around this level.
Got it. Thank you. One last thing, and I'll come back in the queue. You mentioned the new agrochemical contract you've signed with one of the leading global customers. And then the investor communication also talks about various long-term formula-linked arrangements that you're kind of working on. So could you share some more insights into this deal and any further such negotiations you might be having in the pipeline? Thank you so much.
So I can share here what we are doing is something that we have discussed before, even similar con calls. We are, we're working on what we're calling our Depend on Deepak initiative, where we, start getting into very deep conversations with strategic customers, where they are also expecting a certain level of growth. They have already been depending on Deepak in many of these cases, but it has not transitioned itself into a multi-year collaboration and partnership. So what we do is we have these conversations and we start penning, an arrangement together where they are also expecting a certain level of growth. And there what we do is then we tie up the volume for that growth. We preemptively put in the investment where there are always, XYZ clauses and all that. And then essentially their focus goes only on to product development, market development, because they are essentially de-risked with regards to volumes. And it is important for us as key partners to convince them about why they should be able to depend on Deepak. Right? Now, at the end of the day, you will find raw material prices increasing or decreasing. You will find utility costs increasing or decreasing. And that is a general reality. It is our job to convince the customer that with all of these, they would still be better off depending on Deepak. And that is a conversation we have been having more and more successfully in more and more products. And, the product that you talked about, we've tied up with in a medium term meaning 3 to 5 years, it's just one example. But it is by no means the only one. And we are doing this increasingly in more and more products as we ourselves develop our sense of confidence in doing this. Earlier, Deepak itself stayed away from this because we said, look, we have a 10-year, 15-year relationship with these customers. They have been depending on us. They have been giving us a lion's share of their requirements. Why bother to get into that? But as we have gone ahead in the last couple of years, we have realized that also their focus then can shift towards business development, market development, rather than worrying about annual discussions with Deepak. And that has successfully transpired itself into a more solidified relationship, which was always there. And we hope to be able to continue this trend wherever we find that there is good value for the customer and for the company.
Got it. Thank you so much, Maulik bhai. Thank you, Sanjay bhai. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, in order to ensure that the management will be able to address questions from all participants, we would request you to limit your questions to 2 at a time. The next question from the line of Rohit Nagraj from Emkay Global. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. So the first question is, you mentioned about the increased market share, and I think we've been talking about it since past 1 year. So what have been the steps that we have taken to gain those market share across our product segment? And an allied question to that is, this is predominantly because some of the smaller players in India have gone out of the system, or is it because of the import substitution products that we have been providing? Thank you.
I actually didn't understand the question.
So let me tell you about this market share. For example, say sodium nitrite. We just said that there's a brownfield expansion, and our market share is in the range of say 70 to 80%. We are actually moving towards 75 to 80% now. This is where somewhere the customer has got that belief in the Deepak Nitrite products, and we are able to deliver also on this. And when we say market share, it's not only we talk of domestic, we consider export market also. Of course, we will be very small in sodium nitrate as so far as export is concerned, but still we have our presence in US and Europe on this.
And Southeast Asia.
And Southeast Asia. Whereas in phenolics, if you see, the capacity is going up and up, and every time we are earlier we felt that we will be having 65% of the market share. Today, because the market has expanded, we are still at 65%, but still we are having enough opportunity. We go on increasing our production, because see, the production, people ask about the capacity, but actually it is not capacity. That's the right word our CEO had used. There is a capability of producing rather than capacity of producing, So somewhere people will ask, how can you grow further? But then you can see every time we are growing further on all the... So more and more we produce, more and more market we are capturing. Our market share has remained intact in most of the products, and is growing in fact in most of the products. And we do not let go market share, let me tell you honestly, because and that is the key here. If just focusing on EBITDA but not focusing on market share doesn't help the chemical business. You will have to retain your market, grow, and then only focus on the EBITDA and these. So any of the product, you name any product, and we will be at least above 50-60% in whichever segment we are operating. And in some products, it will be around 70-75% also.
Right, sir. Thank you so much. So the second question is on the medium-term contract for one of the largest players that you have mentioned. So any understanding, maybe after 5 years, we are looking at a certain percentage of our revenues coming in from such long-term contracts. Any strategy that we are planning or devised for the same? Thank you.
No, we don't work with a predetermined target in terms of percentage or anything like that. I know that's a workable business model for many companies. For us, what we do is we say, okay, is there a value that both sides can gain from having this kind of formalized relationship? Otherwise, in general, in every single one of our products, our customers know and appreciate how well they can depend on Deepak. So if they are already depending on Deepak, there has to be a good value at both sides to get into this kind of a discussion. Now, it just so happens that right now we are getting into many of these conversations. Many of them will transpire into a formal arrangement. Some of them will stay at an informal arrangement. And in some cases, we will ourselves decide that, look, the right way forward is to ensure that there is an anchor customer or two, but beyond that, we should focus on spot opportunities because we are well entrenched in that segment. We have a good dealer and distributor network. We have our team spread out very well, and we believe that the company will further benefit from having an open position. So with all of these vagaries, saying that there is X or Y strategy, the strategy could be product specific. The strategy in many cases could be customer specific. So we don't foresee any sort of strict number that we need to achieve. We have not taken this as our own targets.
Got it, sir. So just one clarification on the capex front. So 1,250-1,300 crores is excluding the Deepak Cleantech capex, or is it including?
No, it's a part of that.
It includes it.
Right, sir. Thank you so much, and best of luck.
I mean, as far as you are concerned, it is the company that you have invested in.
Deepak. Now, whether it is
Right, sir. Right. Thank you so much, and best of luck, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Kumar Somia from Ambit Capital. Please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, sir.
So my question is regarding this medium-term contract. If you could throw some light on the tenure of this contract and how much revenue are you planning to extract from this contract? And post this, how do you plan to utilize it? And if you can highlight more, if you can give clarity on, is it exclusive supply agreement or are we supplying to other customers as the same product?
No. So what I can tell you is I can't give you any numbers. And I certainly can't give you any numbers because what if my customer is listening to this call? But in all seriousness, what we have in our discussions is that these are growing molecules that the customer uses our products for. So they themselves cannot give us a fixed volume number. But what they tell us is that we have an obligation to supply a minimum percentage of their requirement. We have to give them a priority. Tomorrow, if push comes to shove and their requirement increases, we have to agree to be giving them volume instead of giving it out in the spot market. All of these are give and take at the end of the day. What I can tell you is that for this particular product, we give them a specific kind of SKU which is tailor-made for their consumption. And therefore, while we may sell the mother product to other companies and other customers, this particular kind of SKU in this bespoke manner, we focus on giving to this customer. That also allows us to create some sort of an entry barrier with regards to competition. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, sir, that does. And sir, again, repeating on the earlier question, the 1300 crore includes 700 crore of phenol capex, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Thank you. The next
Once
question.
again, we'll just highlight that this is what we have announced so far. This is not the end of it, but this is what we have clearance from the board to be able to tell the shareholders.
Thank you. The next question from the line of Naresh Vaswani from Samiksha Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, my first question is on the prices of phenol and acetone which are imported right now.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Naresh. May I request you to speak on the handset mode, please? Your audio is not very clear.
Hello, am I audible now?
You're audible, sir, but there's a slight echo. So if you can come on the handset, it will be great. Thank you.
Yeah, now am I audible?
Please go ahead, sir.
The pricing of phenol and acetone which are being imported, right, is what we are able to in the domestic market. So how much difference is it because these they go imports increasing and what kind of spreads do you see the spreads compressing in coming quarters? That was my first question.
Your voice was not clear. One was pricing. What is that you're saying?
Prices of phenol and acetone, yes.
So you want to know the prices?
No, I wanted to know with the ADD going off, will there be more imports because the duty structure which was there is no longer now?
No. I just answered to Abhijit that we are confident that we'll retain the margin, which is 22%. Again, I am not sticking to one figure, but it will be somewhere between 20 to 22% margin we will be retaining. There is no question of anti-dumping affecting us or nothing like that.
Yeah, what I can share is anti-dumping from one country or another. Phenol is like water. Water will come from everywhere. It's not like you can block one place and then the cup will not fill up with water. It's all about what is the price, what is the movement, what is the available supply. And let me assure you, there is ample supply of phenol in the world and there's also ample consumption of phenol in the world. Before Deepak came in, India was almost entirely supplied by imports, right? And today there are n number of countries. So the countries which have this anti-dumping revoked do not actually factor in any substantial way whatsoever, whether it is with volumes or with prices in the Indian ecosystem. So we ourselves are not very worried. We don't think you should be very worried. Imports will continue. But generally speaking, not really from the countries where it got revoked. it is a rather free market, and everything depends at the end of the day on prices and on demand supply.
Right. And on the capex front, out of the total, how much is for the brownfield?
So around 150 to 200 crores will be for brownfield.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Kishan Gupta from CD Research. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. Hello.
Proceed, Mr. Gupta.
Yes, hello.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so what factors do you think have enabled you people to run this phenol capacity at some 120% or more?
I mean, factors, it's all our efficiency. And we have got a very good technical team, all I can say. I just said his dialogue, what he said, capacity is a namesake, capacity is more important, And we like that idea that yes, we can do it.
Actually, for us also, this has been very, very good learning. As Mr. Upadhyay said, we should focus not on talking about the nameplate design capacity. In fact, when we began this project, we didn't have a lot of money, we didn't have a lot of land. We had to do what best we could do with what we had. This theory of constraint. And then over, getting a good handle on how to run the plant, we ourselves learned that as long as we minimize the peaks and the troughs and we focus on, throughput, the more peaks, the highs and the lows that you have, the lower the throughput can become. But when you streamline it to make sure that, it is homogeneous in that sense, you put in the right kind of advanced process controls, and you have to ensure that efficiency is the name of the game here. You automatically find that there are, new kinds of ceilings that you are able to find. Frankly speaking, when we started running the plant, we ourselves thought that 105, 108% of the capacity is the best that we will be able to do. And in fact, right now we have gone far, far in excess of that. And even then we're finding that if we make this small change here, this efficiency improvement there, we can further improve the throughput. So if you ask us if we have reached our ceiling, no, we haven't. And we've learned from past experience, as Mr. Upadhyay said, that the ceiling is in our mind. We have to focus on improving capability. We will improve the output automatically. And as we do this, we amortize the fixed cost over a larger and larger base.
So essentially, can you replicate this for other businesses or other plants as well?
That's challenging ourselves.
We have been doing that regularly. Otherwise, the growth.
No, I'm talking about over 100%. I'm talking about over 100%.
Yeah, we have done it successfully in a couple of other products. We ask ourselves that question: why can't we do it everywhere? And the short answer is, it's easier to do when it is a continuous plant. But that does not mean that we are resting on that answer. The job that operational excellence has is, process intensification, do more with the same. And we've significantly improved in many of our products. We are working on others. We have not, raised our hands in failure yet. So the job for us is not done, it is ongoing.
And somewhere it will need some small capacities also. It's not that it's always free. Like tea bottle making, when we are saying there will be some investment. But the idea is to run the plant optimally. You see, the benefit of this is that you already have utilities, you already have a plant running. You have to just add one reactor, or whatever is required from a technical point of view. Or you can use the same thing for the higher utilization also. So this is where the key lies.
So do you think you people have some sort of competitive advantage in running this phenol plant at this utilization, or others can also do it?
I don't know. Others have not demonstrated yet. We have demonstrated.
Not globally? Global players have not been able to demonstrate that?
I mean, see, we can't answer that because this is not what we spend our time asking ourselves. But what I can tell you is...
no, you can always compare and know, like, how you're talking about the efficiency, right? You're talking about efficiency. So we're just trying to understand, like, how efficient you are to compare to others for this business.
But you have seen our own performance. Why compare with somebody else? When we have said our capacity is 2 lakh tons, and today we are selling and producing more than 230 to 40 lakh tons. I mean, what more you want? Why compare with somebody else what he is doing? We are doing our best and we are doing reasonably well. That much we can say.
Okay, thanks indeed.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Dhruv Muchal from HDFC Asset Management. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. So the first question was, I was doing this math for your RM cost for the phenol business. What I was doing was consolidated minus the standalone should effectively give me the phenol business, largely the phenol business numbers, if I'm not wrong. And if I look at the RM cost after doing this math, the RM cost in the phenol business has increased significantly. Versus if I look at benzene and propylene prices, they have not changed much. This is, I'm referring to Bloomberg benchmarks for benzene and propylene on a QOQ basis. So what could be driving this? I'm just trying to understand that.
What could be driving the raw material cost, or what could be driving the...
what could be driving the significant increase in raw material cost on a QOQ basis? Which is not suggested by the benchmarks. It could be probably the lag that the 1Q price, the 4Q prices are now reflecting. I'm just trying to understand what could be this.
Yeah, so first of all, the prices that we pay for our raw materials are not always exactly the same as the published prices. It's dependent on our discussion with the supplier. It could be based on a previous month, or it could be based on an average of a quarter or something like that. It's different for different. Similarly, what I can also say is that, at the end of the day, we of course do also consume, for example, hydrogen. And, between these key raw materials, there are also other smaller raw materials that are there that do play a role. It's not like they're completely absent.
Mm-hmm. Sure. No, the only thing was the increase seems substantial. So I was just wondering, is it primarily to do with the lag impact, or is there something else? The lag is understandable, but I was just trying to understand, is there anything besides the lag?
See, the prices of benzene have gone up. The volumes are going up. You can't, see, the problem is that we can't take an absolute number and then arrive at some numbers, because there could be stock.
Okay. One point which you may not have considered, or if you have, I don't know. Would you have considered the cost of utilities?
No, so I was referring just to the RM cost.
250%.
RM cost.
Achha.
Benzene has gone up. The volumes are higher. So I mean, it's a combination of all. There could be stock also somewhere consumption. Proportion of benzene is high in phenol.
Okay. For simplicity, I assume that you were operating at 115%, which you have already reached. So 115 to 120% utilization in 1Q and 2Q. If it's a stretch, probably we can take it later. I will try to take it later offline. No worries.
Yeah.
And just one other question was, two small questions. First is on the basic chemical. You mentioned that we are expanding capacities and which will be commissioned in 3Q. So what, in terms of, you can give some percentage in terms of volume, how much volume can increase after this capacity expansion? It will help us in our growth forecast.
For that one product, it would increase it. Now again, there's a question of capacity versus capability. But if I was to say capacity, the increase would be about 15% or so.
Sure. And so the last question was the 1200 to 1300 crore capex that we plan. First is, over what duration do we plan to spend this capex? This is also why I'm asking this is in context of the 1H capex. The 1H capex number seems a bit low, which is about 82 crores on a consolidated basis. So I just wanted to understand this 1200 is to be spent over what period?
The next 1.5 years.
Okay. So the larger part will come in the next year from a cash flow basis.
It starts from today. It's not that to be a larger part, but yes, the larger cash flow would come in the first half of next year, maybe second half.
Got it. Sure. Great, sir. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Ranjit Tirumala from B&K Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thanks. Thanks for this opportunity. I have a couple of questions. Again, a bit apologies if the question is kind of a repetitive. I have this confusion on the capex front. I'm looking at the board-approved capex, which you are saying around 1100 odd crores, and on record we have this 700 crores on the Phenolics and 300 crores to 400 crores on the Deepak Nitrite. Though we have to consider it as a company, but it would definitely help us if we can provide a bit of granularity with the three different companies that we would be having.
See, 700 is in Phenolics.
Sorry, sir?
700 we have announced in Deepak Phenolics. You must have read that. 300 to 330 in Deepak Nitrite, which is announced. Plus, there are debottlenecking capex, which we do not make much publicity about because these are all regular. We believe this is a normal feature. What we spend could be in the range of 150, 175 crores. Okay. Plus, we have I have not added the other things like IPA and which are already there, which itself is around 250, 260 crores. Okay. So there are several things which are not, no announcements are made because these are all, we believe is a routine thing which we, in any case, we do it. Say 50, 60 crores, debottlenecking, we don't make an announcement, but overall it is in this range.
Yes, sir, but these announcements are not including Deepak Cleantech. So we also kind of alluded that we would be doing some capex in the Deepak Cleantech as well. So I was looking at that particular.
We answered just a few minutes back. Deepak, this is a total capex.
Yes. Well, 700 is Phenolics and 400 is Deepak Nitrite. So that is
Deepak Nitrite, but that is Deepak Cleantech, around 300 to 350 crores.
Yes, okay. This is helpful and this clarifies. And second question was in the release you have mentioned that both the quantities of OB and DASDA are like higher than the usual quantities. So here, just wanted to get a sense, are we likely to see the similar exuberance that we have witnessed a couple of years back, or this is going to be a bit below that? Qualitative comments.
It's not the right, honestly speaking, it is not good for us to answer that also, because this is, when you start seeing something and it is sudden and it is significant, you don't know whether it is something that will continue. At the end of the day, for us, we are not here in the spot market. Our goal is to remain sustainable, and our goal is to be strategic suppliers. Of course, we will take advantage of any opportunity that comes. There's no doubt about it. But if you ask somebody in the beginning of a volatile change what they expect the average over the next many months to be, whatever answer it will be wrong from the perspective of endogicity. So please, I would not look forward to answering this question.
Yes, sir, certainly. Perfectly fine. That's more on the price commentary. I was more looking from the demand exuberance.
The volume demand has been growing certainly, which we mentioned about 3 quarters ago, from a very, very low base. Today, by and large, all of the downstream industries are up and running largely, to whatever it was at pre-COVID levels in terms of volumes. Now, like any other industry, they are dependent on a whole variety of raw materials. The demand is very strong, especially in segments like paper, which were very depressed for the longest time. The demand is very strong. It's their job to make sure that they get all of the key raw materials that they need in order to supply to that growing demand. How well they do it will play a large role in the kind of demand that they have for our products. There's no point in being able to get 3 out of 5 raw materials because you still cannot make the finished product. Today, we are seeing strong demand. We're seeing rising prices, and we are seeing a high level of customer confidence. Tomorrow, we don't know.
Yes, sir. And finally, a bit on the supply side also. Is the industry will be able to meet that demand? Do we have enough supplies?
Like I mentioned, that the segments are now operating at pre-COVID levels. And there is, today, if you read in the in the news in the US, in Europe, in Southeast Asia, everywhere they are essentially crying about running out of paper, printed paper. They're not able to make these kinds of pamphlets and brochures and things like that. So there's a very high demand. Now, that does not necessarily translate automatically into high demand for Deepak's products. We're intermediates. Like there would be other suppliers of other intermediates. If they can make sure that they're able to get all of those, which right now they're able to, we need to see how the situation transpires. Today, it looks positive. Tomorrow, wait and see.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for these insights.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Faisal Hawa from HG Hawa and Company. Please go ahead. Faisal Hawa, your line is unmuted. Please go ahead with your question. May we request you to unmute yourself from your mobile and ask your question? As there's no response from this participant, we'll move to the next question, which is from the line of Rajiv Sehgal, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. At the outset, I would like to congratulate the management for an outstanding set of numbers in difficult market conditions. I have two questions. Number one, how dependent are Deepak Nitrite and Deepak Phenolics on import of raw materials from China? My second question relates to launch of derivative products of phenol and acetone. Here, I'd like to know what is the timeline for the launch of these new products? And secondly, what is the estimated annual revenue in year one when these products are launched? Thank you.
Okay, first of all, with regards to the import dependency on China, see, we do import from China, but we don't solely import from China for any of our raw materials. So if you ask us with regards to criticality, I would say that it is not high. And I would say that we look at China like any other source, but we have others, including domestic sources. From that front, we are de-risked. Of course, at the end of the day, these can create sticker shocks on prices and all, but we believe that we're in a good place in our key dependence, and we have been able to pass on our cost increases in Q3 so far. Now, with regards to the revenue growth, etc., of the new products, what Mr. Upadhyay mentioned is that you would target something between about around a 1.5 odd asset turnover ratio. So that would give you a good indication. And
but if your question is specifically about year one operation, you can take 70-75% utilization.
Yeah, I had two questions here. Number one, what is the timeline for the launch of these derivative products of phenol and acetone? And secondly, how much incremental revenue would these derivative products give you in year one of the date of their launch?
So to answer specifically, timeline will be 1.5 years from now. Okay, and first year operation would be, say, we can take, of course our target would be to take 100%, but we can take safely 75% of utilization. So if the revenue is 1.5, then accordingly you can calculate.
So just to clarify, when we say asset turnover, we talk about incremental revenue. We don't talk about cannibalized revenue as well. So that we are able to make anyways without making an investment.
Fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Jay Bhatija from JV Investments. Please go ahead. Jay Bhatija from JV Investments, your line has been unmuted. Please go ahead with the question. There seems to be no response on this line, so we'll move to the next question. The next question is from the line of Satjeet Singh, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Hi. My question has been answered. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The next question is from the line of Venkat Rao, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Hi, Hi, sir. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I'm a first-time investor and I'm a data scientist by profession. My question is to Mr. Maulik. Sir, can you tell us how important is artificial intelligence going to be in Deepak's future? And how is it adding value to Deepak if there are any projects that use AI?
Okay. Artificial intelligence and machine learning, frankly, if I'm honest, it is as important as you want it to be. You can make it the most critical aspect. You can make it something that you can just ignore. Look, we have been implementing machine learning and AI across many of our plants. We have got a lot of value from it. What we focus on doing is making sure that at every stage, especially when you're implementing advanced process control, you're capturing data. Whether you're able to make use of the data immediately or you're able to use this bank of data that you have developed over many months, even 6-8 months from now in order to project a trend, at the end of the day, data is useless unless it converts itself into knowledge and insight. We've started that journey. We're quite happy with the results. We hope to be able to take more such initiatives across more such plants, and not just in plants, but also with regards to the supply chain. It is a calculated step, and our goal is to see that we do it right. We don't do it because it's the flavor of the season. We certainly don't do it because a lot of these big three consulting firms are pushing it.
Got it. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question from the line of Gaurav Singhal, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Hello, sir. I'm audible?
Yes.
Sir, just one question. You had explained on last call about fine and specialty chemicals and how it's dependent on global situation of shipping. Just wanted to understand if that situation is improving, because we have been seeing continuous, not much, but there is over last 3 quarters there has been decline in sales. So is that situation improving?
So, I asked this question to the logistics head before this call because I anticipated it. And very happily he told me this situation is now not getting worse.
Okay. That's good enough. So clearly,
I'll just highlight one thing. See, right now, it's well known that there is some sort of a production and therefore a supply constraint for material coming out of China. Some of these reasons are decision based. Some of these are consequence based, and therefore China being that very high center of gravity in terms of material movement across the world, when that reduces its trading, you will therefore immediately find a knockdown availability of ships to the rest of the world, including India. Today, therefore, the situation seems less dire than it was a few months ago. Now, if and when after a couple of quarters China comes back, and in what form it comes back and how that affects the freight, we don't know. This is a question that not just Deepak, not just the chemical industry, not just India is grappling with. But today it certainly seems to have given us a brief respite. It has nowhere at all come back to what it was pre-COVID. So let's just be clear about that. Prices are still elevated, but supply has improved.
Okay, so with some lag, it would be possible to pass on the cost and actually resume some kind of growth in the business.
We were hoping so, but again, I have to warn that this is still an evolving situation.
Understood, sir. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Manish Jain from Moneylife Advisory Services. Please go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity. So my first question is, how do you foresee revenue composition 3-4 years from now? What will be the major contributor to revenue in the future?
What will be the major contributor?
Can you repeat?
Yeah, sorry. How do you foresee the revenue composition 3-4 years from now?
it'll be good.
No, I mean the revenue composition, like what will the major growth major revenue driver will be?
Anyway, it's difficult to project. No, frankly speaking, we're making investments in all the segments. We're expecting growth so far in all the segments, and we remain bullish. Now, the journey from now towards the next 3 years, there's a lot of new strategic moves that we will be making that we would not have made many years ago, and that will actually dictate a lot more. So, for example, we are looking at getting into an entirely new segment like that has been announced, for example, with solvents. So today, we have almost no place in this other than some small volume of acetone and IPA. But what we're going into are downstreams, more value-adding solvents. How we are able to leverage this and develop a business model which is allowing us to take a larger share and more value-enhancing share will factor into how we take our strategic business decisions with regards to, business unit structure and some such. So, it's a journey for us. We will get into announcement, but, you can safely say that across all of the engines, we are expecting some or the other level of growth over the next year, 2 years, 3 years.
Okay, understood. And secondly, what is the capacity utilization across business segments today?
Now, if you ask us capacity utilization or capability utilization?
Both you can say.
Actually, this question is not very relevant because across the segment, everywhere we can increase the capacity and we do that regularly. So if I tell you we are running at 90%, but that doesn't make much sense. And we will grow, to answer your question, no doubt, on all the segments, all the fronts. You will see, as I mentioned in the last call also, you will see completely different Deepak Nitrite from 5 years from now. The last 5 years back also we had said that our chairman has said in one of the meetings, I think it was FICCI or I don't know which one. Somewhere he said that this question was what is your growth, what is your vision? He said, I want to reach, say, $1 billion turnover. Now, that was absolutely, at that time our turnover was maybe 1,200 to 1,400 crores, and he was targeting 6,500 and at Touchwood, I think this year will touch 6,500. So you see, this is what it is. 4 or 5 years back, we made some steps, we took some steps, we have delivered, and we actually, as a company, we deliver more than what we promised. That is accepted truth. So here also you will find a completely different Deepak Nitrite after 4 or 5 years. Have patience and trust us for whatever steps we are taking. That's all I can say.
Thank you. The next question from the line of Sukan Fish, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Hello, sir. Thank you for giving me this. So my first question is related to the revoke of anti-dumping duty recently by our ministry. And second question is related to the dual control regime from China. How are we seeing this opportunity? And the third question, last question is, so regarding the new chemistry which we are pouring into agriculture, so is it related to fluorine chemistry? And yeah, that's it.
Okay. For the first question, which is about the anti-dumping duty, I do not expect that it will impact us much. If the prices are going to go up, they'll go up. If they're going to go down, they'll go down, but it will not be because of these revocations. And with regards to your second question, sorry, what was it about fluorine?
Dual control regime in China.
Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah. So with regards to dual control, I think there is a value to the investor community in studying the dual control policy. For what it's worth, the policy has been in place over the last year as well. They have just been implementing it far more strictly right now. And we believe that they will continue to implement it strictly definitely up to the Beijing Olympics, but we strongly also feel that they will continue to implement it to a large extent all of next year. Now, the impact of this, that is very tightly linked to what people understand from it and how different industries react to it. Because the goal of the dual control policy is for it to be dynamic, for it to reward provinces that are doing well, and for it to punish provinces which are not doing well, while at the same time ensuring that overall as a country it is working towards its net zero emissions by such and such a date. And all of this has already been outlined. Now, for the chemical industry, in particular, this will lead to short-term disruptions in many cases, lead to opportunities, in some cases lead to supply-side shocks. And in many cases for Deepak, it is also actually leading to interesting opportunities to export more to China. Any which ways, what happens is that the policy, along with the current shortage that they are facing in utilities, along with their internal targets for the Beijing Olympics, are creating a significant shock. This will, over a period of time, evolve into something which is more sustainable. We don't see that right now the kind of situation that is there is sustainable. Nonetheless, we are taking the opportunity to see where all we can gain by creating those kinds of relationships with the customers, where we are able to leverage and demonstrate our dependability. And in other cases, we are seeing where we can, as I mentioned, look at export opportunities, even if it is to China. Third question was about fluorine, as we've announced. Yes, fluorination will be one of the process platforms that we are investing in the new site at Dahej. This will be part of the newly announced subsidiary, and therefore there are different kinds of products that can be fluorinated, but fluorination as a new process competency to add to Deepak's stable, that is the intention.
Okay, sir. So in that case, the fluorination will be, we are targeting agriculture industry or the electric vehicle industry, and how are we differentiating from the leading companies like Navin Fluorine?
See, fluorination is a step. Okay, it is one unit process. Now, by itself, a process is not what is going to differentiate you. Today, we are, for example, we're in nitration, we're in hydrogenation, we are in diazotization, so many other things. There are so many other companies that are in it, right? There are companies, and very, very well-regarded companies that are in these, where nobody actually asks us how we will differentiate ourselves. Yes, with regards to fluorination, key aspects of it are things like, availability of raw materials, safety and operational excellence in those fronts. That's what we have to work on. But fluorination is one step. We are linking it with other steps which we have a very deep level of familiarity with. Nitration, reduction, chlorination, all of these things are steps that we have been doing for decades now, and we know what we are doing. So we would not see ourselves comparing or competing with Navin, but what we are doing is we're expanding our product basket with new products that will now utilize a process which was not yet part of our stable. We have, in any case, even today, a lot of fluorinated products that we sell, but until recently we have been buying the key raw materials. Now we will not only make some of those key raw materials, but we will be making other products which, as of right now, will find their application in the agrochemical and the pharma spaces. But as we go ahead, we are working with key customers, strategic customers, to develop products using the same facilities which will go into other segments. But a lot of agrochemical formulations, a lot of pharmaceutical formulations happen to require products which require fluorination.
Okay, sir. So to conclude that, so fluorination, we are targeting agriculture industry and not electric vehicle industry, right?
We are interacting with opportunities in that space. If you ask us what we will do first, what is going to be the first product out of the plant, the first product out of the plant will be targeting the agro and the pharma space. But these are plants, at the end of the day, which are very fungible. So you can use them to make other products as well. We optimize it in the best way that we know how.
Okay, sir. Thanks for the opportunity and happy festive season. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take one last question from the line of Ravi Mehta from Deep Financial. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for the opportunity. Just a couple of questions. One was the medium-term contracts that you sign. Are these newer molecules jointly developed by our company with the customers, or you get the molecule and you develop the process, or how does it work?
No. So what we have announced are molecules which we have in any case as the mother product, but we have customized them in some way and form specifically to optimize their use by the target customer.
Okay.
So it's not jointly developed, to answer.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, it is not jointly developed.
Sure. One more question was on the basic chemical vertical being rebranded as BI. So does it involve some value addition to the basic material and making an intermediate? Is that a way to look at it at this rebranding, or it's more of signing strategic contracts and having focus, and that's why?
It's a strategic reorientation for Deepak, to be honest, because it means that internally we have to realign ourselves towards taking a very balanced view, not just an opportunistic and short-term view, where we are, talking to strategic customers to see how we can ensure that there is a long-term collaboration. In other cases, what we are making sure that we do is we focus, of course, on spot opportunities as and where they come. But finally, we are also recognizing that the products that we make, which we had, there was a time a few years ago where this segment was actually called bulk and commodity chemicals. From that, it translated into basic chemicals. And now I believe it is the right next step for it to be considered a basic intermediate, not a chemical just by its, not the basic chemical, because we are also finding that the products we make are becoming, more and more critical for our key end segments. And therefore, they are expecting Deepak to be playing a more and more active role in ensuring that their supply pipeline remains dependable. So the kind of conversations that we are having, the way that we are realigning ourselves internally is now to have a view and acknowledging that the importance of our products has increased in our customers' minds.
And are we going one or two step in the process to arrive at this level, like from basic chemicals, maybe one or two step forward to get into a intermediate?
See, we are widening the basket over a period of time also, and this will therefore also, otherwise what ends up happening is we constantly internally are in this flux about whether a downstream of a BI product should be BI or it should be in specialty. So what we've taken a call internally is that any product which at the end of the day is a push product, meaning that it is requiring an extremely strong tie-up with the end segment, with a particular customer in the end segment, who is not only an anchor customer but is also going to dictate whether we succeed or fail. Those kinds of products will become specialty products, whereas products where the focus must always remain on, process excellence, product excellence, but there are multiple different end segments, multiple applications, and multiple kinds of customers. Those will be considered products which are well suited to BI. And therefore, now moving forward, when we decide whether products are to be categorized in specialty or BI, it will no longer be on the basis of what is the kind of margin that one should expect. It should be on the basis of what are the most important levers that we should be focusing on.
Sure.
So yes, we will go downstream. Sometimes those downstreams will feature into an enriched specialties BU addition, and sometimes it will remain within BI. Sometimes something that we may make in specialties may deserve its own BU tomorrow. But this is all evolving, and its basis not just something as simple as a margin.
Sure. And just lastly, one clarification. The expanded IPA capacity and the cogen plant, is it commissioned in the H1 or it's going to be commissioned now?
It's in process right now. Commissioning is a period.
This quarter, current quarter.
Okay, so it will be ready probably in this quarter?
Yes.
Okay. Sure, thanks. All the best.
Thank you. Happy Diwali.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That was the last question for today. I now hand the conference over to the management for closing comments.
Thank you everyone for joining this call. In case any further clarifications are required, you can get in touch with Mr. Somsekhar Nanda, our Deputy CFO. Wish all of you a very happy Diwali.
Happy Diwali. Happy New Year.
Thanks once again.
Thank you. On behalf of IIFL Securities Limited, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.